Today on Golf Destination, we take our unique look at the Masters. We dip into our archives and we have some new unique segments from people who have played and covered this tradition unlike any other. Hello and welcome to Golf Destination from the Sociable Studios. I'm Meredith Corman. The Masters Tournament represents the unofficial start to golf season for many across the world. We had a chance to meet a former player who, during one magical week in April, became the low amateur in this storied event. His name, Jim Hallett.
Actually, I got into the game of golf through my dad and grandfather. They were both golf professionals. My dad would put me behind a bush, and he says, "Get over that bush, I'll see you in a few hours." He'd drop 100 balls down there, and I found a way to get over that bush. I had one golf lesson my whole life, not counting my father's growing up.
Jim found success on the local level, but he soon became a force on the state and regional levels.
After I won my first Mass Amateur, I won the New England Amateur right after that, and from there I moved on to the Northeast Amateur and the U.S. Amateur after that. And it's how I got into the Masters, is from the U.S. Amateur.
Upon receiving his invitation, Jim and his mother would write a letter to the committee that would change the Masters tournament forever.
Is there a possibility I could please bring my own caddy? I feel much more comfortable with my own caddy, I said. And I've also looked forward to playing the tournament, so forth and so on. And sure enough, nothing happened for 3 weeks. I got something in the mail. We're changing our rules. You could bring your own caddy. He's famous, by the way. Jack Tassoni is famous. He's the first non-Augusta caddy ever to walk on Augusta National.
He was fortunate to have Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw asking him to play a practice round.
And they told me, this is what you got to do in certain situations. Like Tom Kite says, hit a soft shot in on 16 if it's wet. They told me where to miss shots, things like that.
Jim was paired with past champion Bob Goalie in the first round.
So the first 6 holes, I'm stiffing it. And he comes over me on the 6th hole. He goes, "Who the hell are you?" He says to me. I go, "I'm just a hockey player from Bryan College, I swear." Okay. I'm just a hockey player from Bryan College. And he just shook his head like that and went about, I shot 36 and then I had 32 the back for 68 my first round. So I was right in the thick of it right off the bat. It was great.
The third round was postponed because of rain, and the tournament had threesomes for Saturday. Jim was paired with Seve and Arnold Palmer.
When I arrived at the first tee, I got there first, and then all of a sudden, the crowd erupts. It's Seve and Palmer coming walking, and they erupted so loud. I've never heard anything like it in my life. So I just got up and hit it right down the pipe on the first drive. Front 9 was incredible, okay? It was still pouring rain. We had umbrellas. They had to squeegee the greens in the front 9. And I birdied the 8th, okay, which was awesome. Okay, so we hit our drives on 9. They're up there squeegeeing the green, so I'm waiting about 15 minutes now to hit my second shot. I hit it in there about 20 feet and knocked it in to take the lead. So that was my front 9, which was pretty cool. So the back 9's been going really well. The 15th hole, I made a good par after jacking one by about 8 feet. And get to the 16th hole, still coming down pretty hard. Pins in the front right. And I hit a hard 8-iron, right? It landed about a foot from the cup, spun right past the right edge and down the slope and into the brook. I make 5 on the hole. So 17, I made a really nice par. And we get to the 18th tee and we can't see the bunker off the tee on the left. It's so dark. So we waited and came back the next morning and played 1 hole. And I made par. I had already made low amateur because I was the only amateur to make the cut. Which was one of my goals, was to become low amateur.
Jim would finish the weekend with a pair of 78s, leaving him in a tie for 40th.
The Masters taught me a lot. I mean, I did play with the best players in the world, and I was able to compete, which made me feel like I could move to that next level. And it took me a few years to get my PGA Tour card, but at that time, by being low amateur, making the cut, with the best players in the world, I felt that I had a good chance as a professional.
Jim would play for 9 years on the PGA Tour until injuries ended his career. Herbert Warren Wind has long been recognized as golf's poet laureate, and he is the man who termed the phrase Amen Corner. In what is believed to be his last television interview, he talks about the game he loved and covered for half a century.
The whole thing about golf, there's so many people who play well in many different eras. When I was beginning to cover golf, Hogan was having trouble. He had a lot of talent, but he had a hook, and he wasn't putting well. And you saw him develop from a guy who could hit the ball pretty darn good into a great player. You saw people like Byron Nelson, who I think is one of the nicest men I've ever met. A judgment that many people join me in. There's some awfully nice people in golf. I got to know Jones well. Jones had one of the most wonderful minds. He was an engineer. He went to Harvard after he got out of college. He became a lawyer. He was also a very nice man. He had whatever great people have that enabled them to do things that they shouldn't be able to do. Just being in his company was something. I'm not kidding. He was a good friend. I knew Jack Nicklaus very well. I know Jack Nicklaus very well. When I first met Jack, he was young. He got a little stubborn when he turned pro and made a lot of money early. Essentially a nice guy. He had a wonderful father. I think Jack learned more between the age of 35 and 50 than anyone I've ever seen. And there was a particular moment when I thought he was just about growing up. I think it was the 1969 Ryder Cup match, which was played in England. And in the last match, he and Tony Jacklin were playing together. And the whole thing was tied as they came down the stretch. Jack had to play first, and he had to play a very tough breaking putt, and he managed to get it. Then he got up and picked up Tony's ball and threw it to him.
So yes, I don't think you would have ever missed this putt, but I'm not going to give you a chance.
The players on the United States team were furious with him. They said, why don't you give him a chance to miss it? He said, my God, this has been such a great match. It's not going to hurt if we tie this match. We'll go on from here.
It was played, in my opinion, in the spirit of what the games are supposed to be. And I got a lot of credit for giving the guy a little putt.
Jack had grown up into a great guy. I like him very much. Ben Hogan, when we worked together on the modern fundamentals of golf, we met 2 times for 5 days. And he began to work hard and to enjoy it because he felt something good was going to happen out of this. He was not like he was in the golf course. He could relax. He had a great listener, which of course is a great trait. After the first issue with him on the cover came out, and I said, anyone being interested in around there? He said, gee, I went up to the club this morning. Everyone had it down on the practice tee. I said, I got a great feeling out of that.
Next, we learn how the course changes during the week when Golf Destination, presented by Goslings of Bermuda, continues.
Golf Destination is brought to you in part by Goslings of Bermuda. Dare to be happy.
Hello and welcome back to the Sociable Studios and Golf Destination. I'm Meredith Gorman. In 2017, a firefighter played his way into the Masters by winning the United States Mid-Amateur. Matt Parziali spoke with us shortly after to discuss the week-long events and what it was like playing in this enormous event.
Augusta National is obviously a spectacular place, difficult, best condition you'll ever play. But for me, it changed so much on Wednesday night coming into Thursday morning. It really firmed up, the greens were even faster, and it just played that much more difficult in a tournament round that didn't practice rounds. Not that it's not hard in a practice round, but you can kind of find your way around, and Even if you hit a bad shot, you're not in that bad of a spot. But come Thursday morning, all that's out the window, and you really have to be precise with every shot in the bag. And that's what I tell everyone. You can hit the shot, but you have to hit a really good shot every single time. You can't get away with much out there. The first tee shot of the Masters last year was my biggest unknown going into the event. That being said, I put a lot of work in to be prepared for that moment, and that's probably the coolest moment that I look back on at Augusta, is that I was ready for that shot like it was the first shot of the State Am here or the club championship at Thorny Lake. I couldn't find the club face on the range, and Sean, my coach, was standing behind me. He probably wanted to say a million things. He didn't say anything, and then the first tee shot, I hit a good one. So we're off and running. The 7th hole gave me the most trouble that week. That being said, is it the most difficult? Maybe not, but I hit one tee shot right, I hit one tee shot left. Ended up making double both days and really didn't give myself a chance to play the hole correctly. That's a demanding shot for both the tee shot and approach shot, but then you look at 11, and I just played that a little better that week, but that's probably more of a difficult hole than, say, 7 is. So my favorite hole at Augusta, I'd have to say, is 13, because I was able to eagle that, and not only the eagle, but to play the last 9 holes pretty well after playing the first 27 poorly. It was just a good way for me to finish. I felt good coming in. Had birdie opportunities every single hole. Even had another eagle opportunity on 15, and I gave it a little too much and missed the putt coming back. But yeah, that was probably the best hole I played that week. I didn't realize that we got crystal for eagles, and as the eagle putt went in, Mike Weir had said something crystal, and I kind of misheard him. And then we're walking off the green, and Brendan Steele tapped me on the back, because you can get some nice crystal for that. So the next 3 holes, they both explained to me what I actually got for making eagle. And then on 15, that's why I charged the first putt to try to get some more crystal. So unfortunately, it didn't work out the way it did on 13. Yeah, I think another chance around there, you're gonna have the knowledge a little bit more. Not so much that I'm able to go every year like these guys, but a little more preparation for Thursday morning rather than the unknown of Thursday morning.
Thanks, Matt. Earlier in the show, you met Herbert Warren Wind. Well, we spoke with one of his close friends named Don Doyle, who traveled to Masters tournaments with him.
I went down with Donnie Doyle, who's a great friend of mine. He was a nice golfer. We drove down to Augusta. It took us 3 days then. It was something in those days. On the Thursday and Friday, there were only 1,500 people on the course. Pretty classy people on their way home from wintering in Florida. We began doing that every year.
We went 50 in a row. 50 in a row? He only went 49. Jack Lane and I went to the last one together. Jones had a bungalow on the 10th, off the 10th tee. There were 3 or 4 bungalows, and they used to invite the writers over. But you had to be a friend of Bobby, or else he had read some of your stuff and he wanted to see you. So Herb used to get to see him. They used to tell you when you could report, sort of. And Herb used to go there once a year and look forward to it so much, you know. He said it was terrific. Robert Tyre Jones.
I used to go up to see him the morning before the Masters. More and more people would join us going up the hill to Bob Jones. He knew everyone's name of writers who he'd barely met. He was in terrible shape. He was in great form. He had whatever great people have that enabled them to do things that they shouldn't be able to do. Just being in his company was something. I'm not kidding. When you were finished there after staying 45 minutes or so, you would begin to walk back towards the clubhouse. You wouldn't say a word. You were just trying to adjust to being with Jones. And you'd walk maybe 200 yards without saying a word, and all of a sudden you stop and you both say, "How does he do it?" The impact on you is great. Nothing like that is, can't remember anything like that. He was a wonderful man. He wrote good letters. He was a good friend.
Seeing Bobby Jones play. He played the first or second year I was there, and that's the only year he played. Just seeing him, I think, was quite a thing.
Don passed away a few years back, but his family can still be seen every Friday night at his favorite table in the grill room of Thorny Leaf. Next, we talk to the guy who wrote the book on the Masters. When Golf Destination, presented by Goslings of Bermuda, continues.
Club Benchmarking. Your partner on the path to data-driven leadership.
Joining us now is Mark Cannizzaro, author of 7 Days in Augusta, Behind the Scenes at the Masters. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Do you have a favorite Masters memory?
You know, I have a lot of really cool memories. I think, as cliche as it might sound, the memory of walking in the gates for the first time and seeing how like pristine and almost like perfect to the point where it almost didn't look real. That like, to me, I think that anybody that goes to Augusta for the first time, it is blown away by there's not a leaf or a pine cone out of place kind of thing. So I know that's not a golf related thing, but it's my first memory is just kind of as soon as you get in there, you're just looking around. It's like, it's kind of like an adult, in a kid's Disney World, kind of vibe.
For those of us who have never been to the Masters before, we've heard all about the pageantry that goes into it, some of the rules. But from your perspective, someone that's been there before, is there anything that goes on behind the scenes during Masters Week that viewers at home might not know about?
The one thing I would say, I guess you could call it behind the scenes, and maybe golf fans have heard this stated before, but until you're on the grounds there and walking around the golf course, you have no idea the elevation change and how hilly it is. Because television can't really translate that onto the TV screen. And it really is there are some really serious hills to negotiate, whatnot. And when you're a player and you're doing that for 4 rounds of competition, not including 2 or 3 rounds maybe of practice, it can wear on you. So I think that's one of the things there. I did a chapter actually on the Butler cabin, and I sat down with Nance in the Butler cabin. And the weird thing is, I had never even known or looked to see where the Butler cabin was until I went to meet Jim there. And I went in there, and essentially it's just kind of like Augusta has a numerous cabins where people stay on property. And it was just like any of the other cabins, except the downstairs was completely converted into a TV studio. And that's the Butler cabin. So that was kind of a little bit of a look behind the curtain, so to speak, for me, when I went in there. Weirdly enough, I just had never really looked around to see where the Butler cabin was. I could just, I just knew it was there.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Ahead, we recap another annual rite of spring, the We Met Scholarship Fund dinner in Boston.
Golf Destination is brought to you in part by Goslings of Bermuda. Dare to be happy.
Welcome back to Golf Destination from the Sociable Studios. I'm Meredith Corman. The We Met Scholarship Fund hosts the largest golf dinner in the country with over 1,500 guests. This year's dinner featured Hall of Famer Julie Inkster.
Welcome to the annual banquet of the Francis We Met Scholarship Fund.
Cost of education continues to rise, and the need for scholarships has never been greater. But we must continue to come together as champions of education and passionate members of the golf community.
75 is much more than a logo. With the financial need on the rise, we're going to strive to reach 75% of the unmet need for these new scholars by the time those 215 graduate.
I am humbled and honored to be recognized tonight. I have surely benefited far more than I have contributed to this great game in the We Met Fund organization.
The best part of my childhood was that I had a father who loved me unconditionally. I look forward to the day I return to this very banquet as a donor and hear a kid like me tell their story. Thank you to the game of golf for being my North Star, and to the We Met Fund for giving me the opportunity to choose my own path.
ladies and gentlemen, this year's 2024 We Met honoree, Miss Julie Inkster.
The great story was, if you play in a USGA event, they have brand new Titleist on the range. And, you know, all my golf balls I found from people, hacks like you guys, in the canyons. And I'd find those, and that's who I played with.
What an impressive organization that this is, and what you do to really change people's lives and build their lives. That just can't be quantified.
I can't thank you enough for your support. It's been a great evening, and to have my husband Brian here and my daughter, my son-in-law here, it means the world to me. So keep doing what you're doing. If there's any way I can help, I'd be more than happy to help. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Golf Destination. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the full interviews you've seen here and other great content. For Golf Destination, I'm Meredith Gorman.